All right, it's 1 o'clock. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Lean Focus webinar series entitled The Ultimate Guide to Building a Lean Business System that Drives Lasting Results. My name is Damon Baker, and I am the CEO and founder of Lean Focus, and in a bit, I'll share a little about my background. Before we do that, some housekeeping to cover. So this material is proprietary. We ask that you please not use this other than for the purposes of this webinar. There will be a recording that will come to you in an email through the GoToWebinar platform, where you can access this recording at your leisure and review it at any point you see in the future. In addition to that, you'll notice that there are some handouts. So in the GoToWebinar panel, there's a handouts section, and there are 5 PDF documents that you can download during this presentation. One of them is about our consulting services, so it gives an overview of what we do at Lean Focus. There's another PDF about our talent solutions practice, explains how we help accelerate transformations by placing talent into our clients. And then we have, more related to this webinar in particular, the section on how to lead a transformation. So we have a roadmap of what that looks like. And then also a section on content licensing. So one of the things we're going to cover today is the toolbox and what's inside of the Lean Business System toolbox. So this will cover the ins and outs of what those tools look like. And then lastly is our Lean Transformation Academy, which is a resource available to our clients and prospective clients that want to take advantage of some of these workshops and trainings in the future. So with that, let me introduce myself again. My name is Damon Baker. I'm the founder and CEO of Lean Focus, and we are a transformation partner or consulting firm and talent placement firm that works with clients to accelerate results using Lean Business System tools. In my background, prior to starting Lean Focus, I was actually the Senior Vice President of the Eaton Business System Office, the Eaton Business Excellence, we refer to it as. Before that, I was with Danaher Corporation, led the Danaher Business System Office for Danaher Corporate for North America, led a team of folks that integrated many of Danaher's acquisitions, and then helped to onboard the leadership teams and respective sites and functions into the Danaher Business System way of operating. Before that role in Danaher, I was a P&L leader of one of Danaher's dental businesses called Oroscoptic. And then when I joined Danaher in 2007, I actually led the DBS function for one of the 5 platforms of Danaher, about a $2 billion platform. Before that, I had a career in consulting, doing mainly transformations for operations focused companies, doing a lot of work with Fortune 1000 companies. So consumer branded products, oil and gas, chemicals, and so on, applying Lean in the operations space to affect results in safety, quality, delivery, and cost. And then before I got into the consulting role, I worked my way up in operations in ever increasing roles of responsibility, ending in plant factory management, also held roles in continuous improvement and so on. So my years of experience with Lean business systems and Lean related topics and Kaizen and the like dates back about 25 years, and continue the journey here as we speak, obviously with the company today, Lean Focus. So for today's agenda, we're going to cover four areas, 4 sections. So we'll have a brief introduction about who we are at Lean Focus and what we do and what sorts of clients we work with to help transform their business. And then we'll get into the meat of the webinar topic, which is building a lean culture. So we'll spend a whole lot of time defining, what is a lean business system? What are the reasons why you'd want to have one? What are the results that you can expect to get out of it, and how you'd structure your business accordingly to reap the benefits of a lean business system. And then we'll have a section on keys to success, if you will, do's and don'ts, and then some other resources that you can tap into if you're interested in learning more on this topic related to lean business systems. And then we'll end the webinar with some Q&A to allow you to ask any questions that you may have on the topics that we're covering today. So getting into a little introduction on Lean Focus. So as I mentioned, we are a management consultancy and talent placement firm that helps companies transform their business. So what does that mean? So I like to say it as we help companies build high performing cultures that deliver sustainable results year after year after year. So the theme of what we're going to talk about in relation to lean business systems is going to have a results focus to it. So there's three components to that we believe are necessary in order to be successful in driving a high performance culture. First and foremost, it starts with principle driven leaders who have the right mindset, skill set, experience to be able to drive this lean transformation and lead the way for the rest of the business, and be active teachers while also active learners as well, and help guide the business through this transformation. There's a set of guiding principles. We call them our 14 guiding principles or ways of working. We'll talk a little bit about that later, that are really true north ways of operating that guide decision making inside the company, that align with strategy, that should shape behaviors and actions that we take as individuals and teams inside of a business, creating the framework by which we execute. And then lastly, in order to deliver results, results come by way of processes, and putting sustainable processes in place using a highly effective, repeatable, well-established set of tools. So we're going to spend some time on tools. So any one of these three legs that's missing inside of that system, what you fail to accomplish is the output that you want, which in this case, we're trying to achieve what every company is setting out to do, which is sustained profitable growth, or effectively known as value creation for both shareholders and customers and employees and the like. So that's what we do. And here are some companies and industries that we've partnered with in the 5 years that we've been around to help accomplish that. What's interesting to me about this slide in particular is the breadth and diversity of the companies that have really understood that lean is something that can help them, and this way of thinking and creating a high performance culture inside of their business is something that can help them achieve that sustained profitable growth. So really, it's industry agnostic. It doesn't matter if it's continuous manufacturing, discrete manufacturing, or if you're a service-oriented business. The concept of waste elimination, the idea of doing more, faster, better with less, and engaging your people as the engine to do that is something that's common across every industry, every culture, every business. So we're big believers in that, and thankfully our clients are too. So enough about us. Let's get into the topic of the day, which is building a lean culture. So we'll talk about what, in fact, a lean business system is. So before I do that, the old saying goes, Rome was not built in a day, neither will your lean culture inside of your business. So we're big believers that the culture, in effect, which is the ways of operating, the behaviors, the collective thoughts, attitudes, actions, and decisions that we take as leaders and employees inside of a company, shape what the culture is. So it's about people, it's about leadership in particular in that culture. It's not about tools. Of course, tools are important because without them, of course, we can't deliver these processes that are necessary to achieve the sustained profitable growth that investors expect from these corporations. So let's talk about what makes up the culture. So when we say a high performance culture, if I break that down, I define it literally as a system and cadence that defines how an organization interacts, both internally in their four walls and externally to their customers, their markets, their investors, and so on, to help achieve an organization's mission. And inside of that culture, there are three components. So we call them icon, lexicon, and code. So icons are leaders who model these behaviors or these principles inside the business, and they're the ones that we hold in the highest regard, that really demonstrate what it means to live this behavior. So they are the ultimate definition, and they're the people that we seek to emulate, and we wish we had more of throughout our organization, because it would make the rate and result by which we're able to deliver that much faster. The lexicon you can think of as the language that exists within the organization. So what do I mean by that? Colloquialisms, sayings, expressions, mindsets. So things like stretch versus strain, red is green, setting the bar high, data versus opinion. All of those things are beliefs or mindset that shape the culture and the way we interact with one another, and ultimately shape the types of decisions we make and ultimately the actions we take that are congruent with this high performance culture. And lastly is the code. It's the core values. It's the summation of the core values. It's the systems, the tools. It's the toolbox, if you will, that helps us execute and deliver on this value proposition. So a lot of interest is generated in the investment community in companies that are able to generate sustainable long-term results. We talk about value creation. The hidden part that doesn't come up on any P&L or a balance sheet or any conversation related to shareholder value creation is the importance and value of culture. So when you have individuals that are in a high-performing culture like this for a long period of time and have internalized this way of operating, there's a sort of goodwill or value that comes along by just having a culture that, quote unquote, gets it and thinks and acts the same way. And I think we could all hold certain companies in our minds that really demonstrate their ability to do that very well, i.e. Toyota, Danaher, and others that have not shown it just for short periods of time, but have shown it over decades and have delivered results consistently. So culture is sort of a squishy term, and investors and analysts get uncomfortable when you bring these kinds of things up. So what's really in it for all those stakeholders? And we'll talk about them a little bit further in the presentation as well. But there's a value proposition that comes with operating your company in this manner. So starting with kind of the obvious one is, if you're a publicly traded company, or if you're a private company, or for that matter, even a nonprofit, Wall Street recognizes high performance culture. So outside people recognize high performance cultures. And in the case of a publicly traded company, the shareholders are rewarded with earnings, obviously, and the stock price appreciates because it's an expectation of future earnings and the underlying risk associated with that business to continue to exceed expectations. These companies do an amazing job of consistently linking their strategic plan with their organizational structure needed to execute that plan, and adapting the skill sets internally year after year to capitalize and execute on those changing strategies. So they don't remain constant. They're constantly adapting given the external environment, market drivers, internal considerations, and so on. So they continue to reinvent themselves. The system itself by which the employees are measured, rewarded, performance is developed, and feedback is given is all aligned, the performance management system that is, to the business objectives trying to be accomplished. Revenue growth, profitability, working capital turns, quality, and. Everybody has those metrics in their goals and objectives, and we're holding people accountable and responsible to deliver on those to satisfy those stakeholders. An interesting sort of dynamic flywheel happens when a company does this really well for, in the cases of Toyota and Danaher, decades. It attracts talent to that organization. So there's a steady inflow of people interested to want to play for, quote unquote, the winning team. So these organizations have their pick of the litter when it comes to talent. So they're able to recruit from the best business schools and undergraduate schools in the country. They're able to attract talent from perhaps peers or competitors in their markets that they play in as well. So it gives them that advantage in the talent race as well. The talent management system also helps to enable inorganic growth. So what I mean by that is growth through acquisition. So one of the levers, obviously, to grow revenue is go buy a company or bolt on a business. And if you don't have a bench of talent that you can rely on that's capable to step in and integrate these companies, you can't realize the value that was identified as part of the acquisition due diligence. So it gives you degrees of freedom to grow inorganically by just having this bench of talent that you can rely on to just step in and lead these businesses and integrate them into the culture seamlessly, almost as if from day one they were part of the culture all along. And lastly, these people tend not to leave these organizations because they look at the outside world and how some of these companies operate, and they don't want to go there because of processes that maybe are broken down or muscling in order to get results versus having sustainable means to deliver results. So the turnover rate tends to be lower in these organizations. There's also a higher rate of internal promotion because they want to ensure that the culture internally is not watered down with too many external folks coming in. So people that have this mindset are promoted from within, and that way the culture is retained at all levels of the organization as well. So what is a lean business system? Sort of define the pieces and parts. So it's subsystems and tools. So I'll show you here in a few slides an example of our business system that we refer to as a lean focused business system. But inside of it are subsystems and tools necessary to help the organization deliver on its strategy. And typically those systems and tools are aligned along horizontal value streams. Think ideation of new product or service all the way to delivery of product or service to the customer and everything in between. How you design products, how you launch and market those products, how you sell those products, how you make those products, how you ship those products, how you service those products. So there's functions that touch each one of those value streams, and there's systems and tools needed for those functions and those value streams to improve their work. So all of it is contingent on making your work better today than it was yesterday and making your work better tomorrow than it was today. So the concept of continuous improvement. The business system is designed in such a way that it connects all of those disparate functions together in a way that creates this engine with a set of gears that mesh, in a way that creates this orchestrated effort that delivers results. And without the system and its effect on all these other functions, what you get is these islands of success and sometimes what we call as a sea of waste. So maybe it's being done in operations, but there's still decisions being made and strategies being undertaken in the commercial world that are misaligned with what it means to be lean, quote unquote, in the operations space. So everybody needs to be on the same sheet music with respect to these guiding principles and what it means to be a lean culture. And of course, that's going to mean different things to different people. So we don't go into sales and talk about, automotive widget manufacturing examples. We're talking about lean applied to sales and eliminating waste or muda applied to the sales process and using the tools helping them to be more successful. When we apply these tools with a set of guiding principles, you start to align the decision making and the behaviors, more importantly, in the organization. So the construct by which we look at situations, solve problems, take action is consistent. So as an example, if we were struggling to satisfy the customer, we may be tempted to just bring in a bunch of inventory to quote unquote make the problem go away. The lean-minded person would say, well, I have to satisfy the customer. I also have to satisfy the shareholder and maintain the optimal balance of working capital. How do I satisfy all those parties? So the lean thinker thinks that way. And when you have more people inside your organization thinking in alignment with guiding principles, you're able to unlock even more value creation opportunities. Ultimately, a lean business system is a system that creates a standard way of problem solving, think closing gaps in performance at every level of the business, from top line growth all the way down to a cycle time variance, missing a pitch in an hourly production cell, and everywhere in between. Each and every person shows up every day thinking about, how do I achieve my standard? And when I hit my standard, what's next? I raise the bar and I go for more. So having this set way of solving problems inside the organization gives people this sort of life raft, if you will, to have faith that if applying a problem solving process, given the challenge of ever increasing expectations to make the business more profitable and grow and so on, they'll know exactly what tools and systems they need to do in order to achieve that. And next year it just repeats itself, and the year after that it repeats itself. So it just continues. So conceptually, you can break down the system into 5 components, and this is sourced from the Shingo model, but I think it aptly fits here, and we align with this as well, which you'll see on the next page with our business system. In the center is the culture, so it's how the organization behaves. So we already talked about that. It's things like Kaizen mindset, leaders teaching, mind over wallet, striving for one piece flow, 0 defects. All of those things are cultural ways of operating. There's guiding principles, right? So how do we create continuous flow? How do we satisfy the customer? Voice of customer, these kinds of things. And you can see that these things either align with or interact or drive each other. You can see the arrows kind of going back and forth with one another. There's systems, so you'll see that the big system is obviously a system, the lean business system, and then inside of the lean business system are the functional components of, how do you drive sales? How do you drive supply chain excellence? How do you drive manufacturing productivity? Those are the systems embedded inside of the overall big system picture. And then at a lower level of detail are tools. So specific tools could be things like standard work, 6S, value stream mapping, daily management, problem solving. So there's literally 50 to 100 tools that you can use depending on which function of the business you're talking about to help you drive results, which is the output. So all of these things lead to results, and it's kind of like a 3-legged stool, although there's 5 components here. You take any one of these things away and it topples over. So when lean transformations fail, you can pin the root causes, generally speaking, on one of or a combination of these 5 things that were not taken into consideration in terms of the transformation of the culture. So here's an example, and not to say that our business system is the only be-all, end-all business system. There are many business systems out there, and you'll see on the next slide some companies that have business systems. But as you see here, just as we said on the prior slide, a lean business system is comprised of subsystems and tools. Here you go. Overall, the overarching umbrella is a lean business system. Inside of that is a system that enables growth. So think revenue and profitability. And inside of that, the system is organized horizontally in how the tools are executed functionally as you think about aspiring for growth, ideating opportunities for new products and services, designing them, and launching them. So aspire, discover, design, deploy. It's really the value stream that an idea for a product or service takes until it's commercialized. And then these pillars, if you will, or columns, are aligned generally by function. So you can think Aspire is probably most likely owned by strategic marketing and product management, Discover, product managers as well. Design would be R&D, design engineers, research, and the deploy would be your sales and marketing folks inside your organization. And then as you move to the right, that horizontal flow continues. Now we're making this product or service, and now we're talking about, in the case of a plant operation, the 4 walls of a factory, where we have to keep 4 things in mind. We have to do it safely, we have to deliver it in high quality, on time, and at the lowest cost. And we have a set of tools that help us do that. And then there's a set of tools inside of a system aimed at the people or the culture inside of the business. So how do we ensure that we are doing things in alignment with our mission, vision, values, that we are promoting the right leaders inside of our company, that we're looking at talent needs in the future aligned with strategy to ensure that we can execute on the things that we're trying to accomplish, and so on. You'll notice that the foundational system spreads across all three areas. So why is that? Because these are really function agnostic, regardless of if I'm in sales, marketing, operations, accounting. These tools here, these 9 tools, have an application, although it may have a little spin or nuance if applied in finance or in manufacturing. But these tools apply equally as well and can deliver results inside of those functions to help them do more, faster, better with less, and achieve their goals or their KPIs aligned with the strategy. The last piece here, the 5th component, is the principles. So back on the previous slide, what we're talking about here, guiding principles, true north beliefs, mindsets, if you will, that shape our decision making. Leaders teach. We believe in developing people. When faced with problems, we go see ourselves. We're constantly eliminating waste. We set high expectations as a leadership team. So it's important, for the organization to look at their culture, their history, what makes them great, what are the things that they can build upon, and decide what are these principles for your business. They may be different. You may borrow some of these. You may decide others are not applicable, but they need to be unique to you. Otherwise, the culture becomes this Frankenstein bolt-on of different businesses and not really unique to what makes you great. So building on that, there are probably as many business systems as there are companies. It seems like there's just a proliferation of them. Generally speaking, they follow the nomenclature XYZ business system. So the Nike operating system, the Honeywell operating system, the Philips business system, I think it's called the Amazon Way, UTC ACE is called. We all know the Toyota production system. So you could take any one of these business systems and you could probably pull it apart and you could map the elements as it relates to these 5 components. And you could probably build some sort of architectural blueprint that looks something like this as well. But overall, what do you get out of this, right? So what's in it for these companies? Because it's not just about executing the tools and doing Kaizen events and things like that. There is a result that they achieve by virtue of running their business this way. Because essentially this is a conscious decision to run your business in a way that's, I would say, different and maybe counterintuitive to how maybe we were taught in a traditional sort of company. So they develop products obviously quicker with less hours, so they're more productive. They use less labor to assemble and produce these products. They make far fewer defects. They use less space. So all of these things are about more, faster, better with less. Next year, more, faster, better with less. So having an organization that can solve problems repeatedly and consistently is the competitive advantage that you get, because next year you're going to give people a new challenge and they are going to have years of prior experience in how they've accomplished their improvements leading up until this point. And they spend less time making the mistakes that they made years ago to get to the next milestone in terms of performance. So it allows them to compete and allows them to take share. It allows them to do things that competitors that maybe haven't subscribed to this way of operating are able to accomplish. So Ken, kind of bringing it home into the why, more on the value proposition here. So the obvious one is, with the term that's used a lot is value creation. So how do we make shareholder valuation accretive? So by driving top line performance or revenue, you're able to do that. So focusing your business on those growth tools inside of that growth system, having production processes that are capable and able of delivering on time and with great quality and the lowest cost means that you can take more share. All of it needs to work together in order to drive top line performance. It allows you to better meet the expectations of your customers. So in today's world, especially with all the things going on with supply chain challenges and COVID and labor shortages due to COVID and other reasons, not doing this, I can tell you, will hurt you even more, especially given the circumstances that we have today. So you're able to better serve your customers, and if you better serve your customers, the arrow leads back up to top line performance. They reward you with more work, right, recurring revenue, and so on. Consistency in results. The market hates risk, and if the market can't rely on you to deliver consistent results quarter after quarter, year after year, those investors will take their money elsewhere. Not only will those investors take their money elsewhere, the employees inside your company, inside that environment, who are subjected to maybe a quarter or a year of not getting a bonus or profit sharing, will also leave you over time if you're not able to deliver consistent results. So it's not just the shareholders in the business, it's the teams inside of these companies that enable those results to happen. If they're not sharing in that performance as well, they're also going to leave. So employee engagement, reading a lot about the Great Resignation and the people figuring out what they want in life. What better way to improve employee engagement in involving people in shaping their work, improving their work, being part of the strategy, being part of delivering the results for the company, sharing in those rewards, providing training and development opportunities by virtue of participating on all of these different things, these tools and Kaizen events and problem-solving activities that helps to really develop people's minds internally, is rewarding. And they view that as the company making an investment in them as an individual, and therefore they're engaged. Their likelihood to be retained and stay on and be part of that culture for the long term is increased, versus, again, a company that chooses not to embrace this style of working. And then ultimately, these companies are more profitable because they're always seeking out ways. They're challenging processes. They're constantly asking why, or saying, what if, right? They're open-minded and saying, what if we did it this way? What if we tried that? So these organizations are constantly looking for ways to do more, faster, better with less, which results in more profitable business, which then gives you the ability to reinvest and grow and do new things and hire new employees, so that virtuous cycle continues. So getting more concrete financially. So when we say value creation, there's a formula for that. So there's really 8 levers that you need to pull on financially in order to drive value creation. So the system, in effect, should map back to affecting these 8 things inside your business. Price. So how do you make sure that you're getting price productivity? You're not giving away discounts. You're getting the highest price you can for the market for the value of your product or service. You're driving increased volume through sales productivity initiatives. Be able to call on more customers, win more customers at a higher average sale. All those things drive volume. The tools inside the business system help you to see the opportunities to drive volume and to drive price. Cost of goods sold, material, labor, overhead. The tools inside the business system allow you to examine the parts of that equation, pull it apart, look for the opportunities to eliminate waste to affect that change. So if we're talking labor, we may be talking about doing standard work Kaizen. If we're talking material savings, we may be talking about doing value analysis Kaizen to affect the material cost side of that COGS equation. SG&A, transactional. So a lot of the administrative labor associated with carrying out the work. So transactionally, can we engineer with less hours? Can we close the books in finance with less hours and people and so on? Can we issue POs and collect money with less hours and people and so on? So these tools inside the toolbox transactionally allow you to affect that SG&A. So I would continue on as you're going through all 8 of these. And the point I'm trying to make is all of these tools map to some financial effect that it should have, which then helps you to achieve value creation. So in a way, it allows you to create this waterfall or this bridge of, if our growth needs to be this, here's where I'm at today. Here are the tools and processes I need to affect. Here are the levers I'm going to pull. Here's how much price or volume I'm going to get, and that's going to help me achieve my goals. And then next year I repeat that process. So it's a form of like macro level problem solving to help you map your journey to achieve the next level of value creation. So what do the lean business system cultures do repeatedly, consistently, year after year? They run this equation, call it the value creation equation. So they're constantly looking for ways to reduce cost structure. So improving gross margins. So again, affecting material, labor, and overhead are getting higher price. They're looking for ways to make the back office more efficient. So driving down G&A, getting more productive. And then they're taking those resources, in this case, dollars, or whatever currency you're operating in, and then reinvesting it into growth-facing initiatives, R&D in the form of new products, new services. So it could be investing in engineers, could be investing in technology, external partnerships, buying a business, whatever it takes, or sales and marketing initiatives. So more feet on the street, more marketing spend, digital leads, whatever the initiatives or channels or tactics that you're using to drive lead gen, demand gen, and sales execution of those products and services that you design. So take the cost, pull it out, reinvest it into growth. Take the cost, reinvest it into growth. So the good news is there's job security in this equation because costs have this sneaky way of always coming back, but oftentimes in a new form or shape, kind of like Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th. You can't seem to get rid of all the costs. They always come back. So overall, by doing those things, your core growth, your revenue goes up, your profitability goes up, right? So those are the 2 things you're trying to drive in this equation. So rather than treat resources as fixed, lean companies look at resources dynamically and say, how can I take what this person was doing over here or what these budget dollars were allocated for over here and move them over here to where I'm better using them to drive what I'm trying to accomplish with my goals and objectives, and so on. Okay, so how do they do that? So there's really 2 primary ways. So we call this the holy trio. The third part is problem solving. So I'll explain that in a bit. So the business is trying to execute its strategy or its strategic plan. So the improvement priorities that they're going to execute on in the calendar year that shape what the strategy is. And generally answer is 2 questions. What game are you playing and how do you win? What markets are we going to grow into? What products are we going to launch? What part of our business are we going to really improve in a breakthrough sort of fashion? And then mobilize effort and people and spend to accomplish that. And the handful of priorities there we're talking is generally like 3 to 5 big meaty topics. And you're using problem solving in effect to figure out what is the plan by which we need to execute on that strategy. So strategy deployment, which is a tool inside of the business system that fits inside of the growth system, is one of the big levers that the company has to drive value creation. So how am I going to take where the business is today and bring it to here by the end of the year, and then repeat that process the next year? For the parts of the organization and people in the organization that are not working on executing the big, meaty strategic topics, they have the responsibility to carry out and execute the budgetary commitments. And if you're publicly traded, this is even more important because the budget is fixed. There's expectations that are communicated to investors in Wall Street and so on. And if we fail to deliver those, then we're penalized in the form of a decreased stock price and investors not investing in the company. The flip side of that is if you're able to deliver budgetary commitments and exceed or hit your quarterly targets for revenue and profitability in accordance with the budget. So basically doing what you said you would do by doing daily problem solving, which in effect is daily management, applied to the base business each and every day, each and every week, each and every month, quarter, and so on. So looking at what went wrong today, why were we unable to perform, what are we going to do about it tomorrow, change the process so that we can deliver tomorrow, and then look at it again tomorrow or at the end of the week, whichever the cadence or frequency is. So there isn't a part of the business. So if you think about every function, no one's immune to this. Sales is doing this, marketing is doing this, operations is doing this, finance is doing this. Depending on what aspect of the P&L that they are touching, they are applying problem solving to their work to do more, faster, better with less to achieve or exceed the budget, which then gives us the ability, allows us to earn the right to execute the new and cool and important stuff, which really formulates the strategy for the business. So effectively, if everybody was doing this well, you could take any KPI in any function across the business, sales, marketing, so on, and you could see a positive trend either going up and to the right or down and to the right, depending on what kind of metric it is, backed up by process, standardization, roles and responsibilities, and so on, and none of it is by chance. So lean business system cultures, high performing cultures do not allow results to be accidental. They're deliberate. They make them happen through purposeful execution. So who's doing what in that environment? So as you move up higher in the organization, more senior folks are working on strategy. The folks that are the frontline hourly operators, sales reps, customer service people, tech support, they tend to be executing more of the daily management work. And then all of us across this spectrum of functional responsibility share a Kaizen role and responsibility, meaning we're all expected to make our work better, whether it be using tools, doing just do it's, problem solving, and so on, doing more faster with better with less in every function in the company. So the daily management, in effect, can, we like to call it at the company level, core value drivers, meaning if we're doing what we say we need to do in alignment with our core values, how could we measure that in a hard way, concrete way, that creates alignment from the top of the organization all the way down to the lowest level of the company? And if any of those metrics are red, it's student body right to make sure that we bring that part of the business back in line with performance, because effectively we've not delivered on our commitments. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. So let's say for a second, and every company is the same, you generally have three stakeholders that you're trying to satisfy simultaneously. You've got your customers, the obvious people that you sell your product or service to. You've got your employees, and then you've got your shareholders or investors. And if you ever add a fourth category, I didn't, but just for simplicity, it could be community, social responsibility, that kind of thing. But for this example, let's just pick three. You say, okay, if we're doing right by our customers, how would we measure that? So what are the most important things that each of these groups cares about, and how do we measure winning? And more importantly, how do we do problem solving when those metrics are not moving in the right direction, or when we want them to be better than what they are today, meaning aspirational improvement? So here are some examples. These aren't, the only examples, but this is just an example of how you could think about it. So some measure of quality, some measure of on-time delivery, some measure of customer promoter score or net promoter score. On the employee side, again, there's a host of ways you can measure this at the top of a company, but in this example here, I'm looking at turnover or retention, how much of our employees are we promoting internally, and then what do our engagement scores look like? So it gives a sort of a temperature on the culture inside the company. Are we living what we say we are trying to do? Lastly, our shareholders and investors. You'll see that these are a little more hard financial metrics: core growth, operating margin expansion, cash flow, return on invested capital, acquisitions and capital expenditures and the like. And generally speaking, these are the value creating levers that investors care about. So when any one of these is red, problem solving. which Kaizens do we need to do to bring that metric back in line with our expectations? So what we work with companies to do is help them map what that looks like for themselves, and then create that set of metrics aligned with what they're trying to accomplish, develop the baseline for how they performed historically to really say what's our jumping off point, how much improvement should we make in year 1, year 2, and so on, and then develop action plans to affect improvement in each one of those core value driver metrics. So in addition to metrics, we need to think about the structure of the organization related to a lean business system. So here is an example of how you could do it. And again, there isn't one perfect example, but this is one that we're pretty confident in and we've employed a number of times. So depending on, and again, this is depending on the size of the business too, I should probably say that as a caveat. So for a larger company, a company-wide centralized business system office that has responsibility for deploying the tools, the system across the business. There's a cross-functional leadership team that governs the strategy around the business system, kind of organization-wide. It's comprised of senior leaders, cross-functionally, sales, marketing, so on, representative. And then each operating company or business that you go into or site would have somebody who's responsible for deploying the business system and delivering results and teaching others how to do these things inside the company. And then you may break that down further into specialization. So are they commercial or are they operations, which we'll talk about on the next slide. And then even below that, you may decide to create competency in your organization by making sure you always have enough practitioners in various relevant tools inside your business system across your business so that there's always people that know how to execute these things to deliver the results and that they can teach others. And we have ways of measuring the number of, ratio of, based on the size of the business, the makeup of the business, to ensure that these are always in alignment in order to ensure the culture sustains in the future. So on the specialization side of things, when we talk commercial, we're typically talking the back office or what we call carpet land functions, sales, marketing, R&D, finance, and so on. So it's powerful to take people in these functions, teach them how lean applies, and then make them the icons, if you will, for affecting change with those teams and leaders inside that business to get real adoption. And they're more apt to listen to that kind of person versus the plant manager type of person coming in with an ops background and teaching them how to close the books faster, right? They just don't have the credibility. And the same is true on the operations side. We wouldn't want the commercial people coming into the plant and telling them how to reconfigure the cell. So depending on your organization, what functions are representative, this structure may look different to you. But what these people focus on are executing the strategic priorities in the business. And the systems, we talked about daily management. So whatever the metrics are that are read in daily management at the company level, at the functional level, are inputs for improvements that need to be made, Kaizen events and other ways by which we drive improvement. And then strategy action plans as well, or value stream maps and problem solving related to strategy. So when you take those two things and you run them through a prioritization, the Kaizen activity that you're managing and executing on should be aligned with what's the P&L say that's red, what's the strategy parts that we haven't executed yet that are also red, and then let's focus on those as our Kaizen priorities, measure the impact, and if we're doing it correctly, we're satisfying those three stakeholders: shareholders, investors, customers, and employees. And here's just an example of how you might think about rolling out a business system. The important thing to remember is you can get overwhelmed very fast, especially if all these concepts are very new to you. So less is more here. So we like this lighthouse site idea. Pick a plant, let's go deep in a plant and let's show what good looks like, bring people to that, have them participate in those activities so that they can go back into their own sites with coaching and support to copy and paste what they saw accomplished in their peer or a colleague's site. And the same thing could be done in a function. You could pick finance as a lighthouse function to transform a function end to end using value stream mapping and process improvement and the like. So there's an improvement side of the equation, and then there's sort of culture enablement side of the equation here. Now, when we work with clients, we define a very detailed roadmap, sort of tailored to what their needs are. And it may follow the paths of leadership, growth, and lean, because we may be affecting all three parts of the business at the same time, especially if we're working with the CEO and his or her team across an enterprise, because there's commercial initiatives going on simultaneously. We're leaning out the plants while we're establishing, strategy at the leadership level. So we may be working across three domains simultaneously. So we put that on a timeline, and then we just start working together to execute and installing these aspects of the business. All right, so moving on to the next steps, keys to success and resources. So as you can imagine, there's all sorts of pitfalls and mistakes that you can run into. So here are a few of them. Won't read these all to you, but just kind of hit on the highlights here. This is a team sport. Nobody gets to sit on the sidelines, and if you don't have active engagement at the top, rolling up their sleeve, asking questions, getting involved, showing an interest and a passion, and leading from the front, it's doomed to fail. I've yet to see a transformation work that didn't involve the top leadership in the company. I think we sometimes overcomplicate this thing, so we get fixated on number of black belts and how many audits we've done and what their score on maturity and things like that, and we lose touch with what the business is trying to accomplish, and more importantly, what those stakeholders, investors, customers, and employees care about. So we just measure things by proxy. They're not moving the needle that affect value creation, which is what shareholders care about. So, and some of these other things we've talked about here, but those are there for your resource. I think the makeup of the leadership is key. Be honest with you, this is not for everybody, and you may find that you have folks inside your organization that just mentally can't come to grips with leading in a way that's in alignment with these values. Maybe they're dictatorial, they're an autocratic, they don't like to collaborate, or they're not data driven, they jump to conclusions, they struggle in these type of high performance and culture because it's not natural. That leadership style is not natural to them. So it's really important, once you figure out what values and principles are important to your business, you hire for that talent, you onboard that talent correctly, you promote and develop the right people in your organization, you reward them internally for increasing roles of responsibility. Because if you promote the wrong people, you hire the wrong people inside your company, you run the risk of jeopardizing the culture, obviously, but you send an unintended message to the people that report up into those leaders that we do not necessarily believe that these values are important. Otherwise, why did we put this person in this elevated role of responsibility? So that's really important as well. So another place you can start, so if this is all new to you, which maybe some of this is, you can start. There's a workshop that we do called Leading the Lean Transformation. It's a day and a half, and it's meant for the most senior executives in the business. We pull them together, and over a day and a half, we go deeper into what does all this stuff mean? How does it fit together? What is your role? What do you have to watch out for as leaders? What does good look like? So there's homework coming into it. There's a lot of discussion, breakout activities, and an action plan leaving this. So it's like a working session. It's a great way just to align the top leadership in the company as to where we're going in respect to creating this high performance culture, because it is a journey. It won't happen tomorrow or next month or the year after. Some further resources. I picked 4 great tools, which I think are really aligned with creating a high performance culture. So Art Byrne, former Danaher leader, great book about his work at Danaher, but also Wiremold, great storytelling in there. Good to Great talks about high expectation companies and what do they do differently than others, and how are they able to outlast and do it consistently over time. Another book by George Konasaker, this really highlights the Danaher transformation in the early 80s and what went into transforming that business. And then this is a great one by David Mann, kind of a soup to nuts, what does it take to create this lean culture inside of a company. You can also follow us at Lean Focus on LinkedIn. Lean Focus LLC is our company page, call sign. You can go to our website here and get our quarterly newsletters as well for more on these topics. So I'll end on this quote here, which I think is appropriate. Mr. W. Edwards Deming said, each system is perfectly designed to give you exactly what you're getting today. So if you are dissatisfied with the outcome is a result of the process you have. And if you want a different outcome, got to change the process. So that's the takeaway. If you're interested in future webinars, you can go to our website here, leanfocus.com, solutions, resources, and then all of the webinars for 2022 are housed there and will be put up shortly, actually. So we'll be doing about one a month. You can sign up in the future. So with that, I will open it up for questions. Open up the